What if I told you that he will call and text you, not out of guilt, not out of pity, but out of genuine curiosity, desire, and regret when you do one simple thing most people overlook? This isn't about playing games. It's not about silence, ignoring him, or posting fake happiness online. It's about becoming the kind of woman he never saw coming. The moment you stop feeding the dynamic that kept you small, when you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop making him the center of your emotional universe, and start becoming the mystery again, that's when he feels it. He feels the emotional disruption, the energetic shift. Suddenly, you're not trying to prove your worth, you're living it. You've stopped chasing and started mirroring. You're no longer waiting for him to call because you're busy becoming the upgrade he never expected you to be. And that's when the regret creeps in. That's when the text shows up, not because he misses who you were, but because he realizes he doesn't recognize who you've become. If you want to know the moment it all turns around, why the message lands, why the call happens, watch this to the end. Everything changes after this. ChatGPT said, "You know what's interesting?" So many people spend their time over-explaining themselves in the hope that if they can just get him to understand, he'll finally see their worth. They think that by expressing all their feelings, spelling out their intentions, and making sure there's no room for miscommunication, he'll respond with love, clarity, and commitment. But let me tell you something. The moment you explain yourself too much, you strip away the very thing that draws people in: mystery. We're taught that being honest and open is the key to strong connection. And while that's true in a meaningful relationship, it's not what sparks desire. Desire is born in space. It's born in the gap between what he thinks he knows and what he wants to know. And when you hand over every piece of your emotional puzzle, when you make it easy to read you, there's no longer any reason to lean in. He doesn't need to text. He doesn't need to call. He already feels like he knows exactly where he stands with you, and he hasn't had to earn it. It's not about playing games. It's about not giving someone more access than they've shown up for. There's a difference. You're not withholding. You're just not handing yourself over on a silver platter to someone who hasn't even brought a fork to the table. When you meet someone and instantly start explaining how deeply you feel, how much you've thought about them, how special they are, and how much you hope this will be different, without them having invested anything yet, it doesn't make you more desirable. It makes them feel like they don't have to try. And I know that's hard to hear because it feels like, but I'm just being real. But real doesn't mean all access. You can be real and still be reserved. You can be authentic and still not be fully available. That's the sweet spot, when he feels something about you that he can't fully grasp. When he sees confidence without need, interest without attachment, openness without overexposure. That's when curiosity kicks in. And trust me, curiosity is powerful. When he starts to wonder what you're doing, where you're going, what you're thinking, that's when he texts. And it's not about pretending you're busy or mysterious or cool. It's about actually being someone who is building a life that is bigger than him. A life where you're not waiting for a call or a message to validate your day. Because when your energy is rooted in your own momentum, your own joy, and your own direction, he feels the difference. He senses that you're not here to be his audience. You're on your own stage. The irony is, the more you center your energy on understanding him, how he feels, what he wants, whether he'll reach out, the less he's thinking about you. Because attention is powerful. And wherever you're placing it, that's where your emotional investment is growing. So if your attention is glued to him and his is glued to something else, the scales are off. The minute you pull your attention back, recalibrate it, focus it on your goals, your body, your friendships, your passions, that's when he starts feeling something shift. Suddenly, there's a change in the dynamic. Suddenly, the certainty he once felt begins to waver. And uncertainty is what drives interest. Men don't wake up one day and think, you know what, I miss her because she always texted first, always explained where she stood, and made sure I never had to guess. No, they start to miss you when they notice a difference in the pattern, when your energy is no longer where it used to be, when the texts stop, when your responses are warm but detached, when they check your stories and see movement, not messaging. Life happening, not chasing. And here's the most crucial part. You don't become a mystery by withholding affection or using silence as punishment. You become a mystery by growing into the most engaged, self-loving, purposeful version of yourself. The version that doesn't chase clarity from someone who's offering confusion. The version that doesn't perform worthiness, but simply lives in it. And that's when everything changes. That's when he notices. That's when the call comes. That's when the text shows up. Not because you begged for it, not because you waited for it, but because you stopped explaining yourself and became someone he has to understand all over again. Most people don't even realize how much of their energy they give away, especially when they're emotionally invested in someone who isn't meeting them halfway. It's so easy to make them the center of everything. Your thoughts, your moods, even your day. You wake up wondering if they've texted. You go about your routine, half present. Your mind caught up in what they're thinking, why they've pulled back, when they might reach out again. And the danger here is that without even knowing it, you're placing all your emotional power in someone else's hands. You're saying, I'll feel good today if he contacts me. I'll feel secure if he shows interest. But that's the exact pattern that makes people stop reaching out. When someone senses that your world revolves around them, they don't feel admiration, they feel pressure. And more than that, they feel the absence of mystery, of excitement, of pursuit. It becomes too easy. Not in a healthy, stable way, but in the way that makes them take it for granted. You've probably heard the phrase, people value what they have to work for. But this goes deeper. People value what reflects value. If your energy screams, you're the prize and I'm waiting on you, you've already lost your center. But the moment you shift the energy back to yourself, everything changes. I'm not talking about pretending to be busy or playing cold. That's performative. I'm talking about a fundamental shift, a mental decision that says, I've been giving too much away and I'm done doing that. You start moving differently. You stop checking your phone every 10 minutes because your day is full again, full of things that inspire you, fulfill you, grow you. You stop analyzing every word he said last time you spoke because your mind is now occupied with your own goals, your own momentum, your own joy. And when that happens, people feel the change, even from a distance. Suddenly, you're no longer broadcasting the energy of someone who's waiting. You're radiating the energy of someone who is living. That's incredibly magnetic. It's the difference between being an option he can circle back to whenever he wants and being a force he starts to miss because it's no longer orbiting him. There's something powerful about no longer centering someone who stops showing up for you. It's not revenge. It's not a tactic. It's self-respect. And people notice when that comes alive in you. You'll find this doesn't just impact your romantic energy. It flows into every area of your life. Conversations get better. Friendships feel lighter. Your confidence becomes less dependent on how any one person treats you, because you're starting to build your sense of worth from the inside out. And ironically, that's when they text. That's when they call. When your energy is no longer clinging to them, it creates a space that wasn't there before. A space that makes them wonder where your attention went, who you're becoming, and whether they're about to lose something they took for granted. See, people are intuitive. Even if they don't consciously understand what changed, they can feel it. Your tone is calmer. You're not jumping to reply. You're not reaching out just to check in or get a hit of reassurance. You're occupied, and not in a petty, avoidant way, but in an expansive way. That's incredibly attractive because it communicates something loud and clear without you ever saying a word. I value myself more than your uncertainty. And this doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you've shut your heart off. It means your care is now in balance. It's no longer desperate or disproportionate. It's grounded, selective, intentional. That shift is everything. Because the truth is, when someone starts to feel your absence, not just physically, but energetically, they begin to realize what they were taking for granted. That's when the dynamic flips. That's when their curiosity ignites. That's when they start to remember why they were drawn to you in the first place, before all the overgiving dulled the spark. But here's what matters most. You don't do this for the reaction. You do this for your peace. You shift the energy back to you because you deserve to feel powerful again. You deserve to stop living in emotional limbo. You deserve to be the one in control of how your day goes, regardless of whether your phone lights up or not. The call, the text, yeah, it'll probably come. But by the time it does, you'll be in a place where you know your value never depended on it. You ever wonder why someone who once seemed so interested, so present, can suddenly go silent? You're left staring at your phone, replaying conversations, wondering what you did wrong or what you should say next. But here's what most people don't realize. The silence isn't the problem, the pattern is. Because people don't respond to consistency alone, they respond to disruption. We're all wired to notice what changes, not what stays the same. Think about the last time your phone buzzed, and it was a text from someone you hadn't heard from in a while. There was an immediate jolt, wasn't there? A curiosity, a little emotional spike. But if that same person had been texting you non-stop every day, their next message would have barely made a blip on your emotional radar. Why? Because it's expected. There's no contrast, no friction, no reason for your brain to stop and say, wait, what's going on here? This is what I mean by emotional disruption. When someone expects you to always be there, to always respond quickly, to keep showing up whether they do or not, they don't feel your absence. Your presence has become a constant, but the moment you change the rhythm, not to play games, not to punish, but to reclaim your peace, you create a gap in the pattern. And it's in that gap that their mind starts to wander. That's when they start checking your stories again. That's when they wonder why your name isn't popping up like it used to. That's when the uncertainty kicks in. And trust me, people notice the difference more than you think, especially when they've gotten used to you being the one always reaching out, always asking how they are, always initiating the next conversation. But when you stop doing that, when you step back, not with resentment, but with quiet confidence, they feel it. They feel the contrast between the version of you who was waiting on their attention and the version who now seems beautifully detached from it. And that shift, that's powerful because it's not just about doing less, it's about being more present in your own life, more invested in your own peace, more aligned with what you actually deserve. And when that happens, you're not just pulling away physically, you're moving emotionally. You're saying, without ever needing to say it. I'm not going to stay in a loop where I'm the only one trying. That's not rejection, that's evolution. That's clarity. And it's the very thing that disrupts someone's complacency. You see, people don't just miss you because you're not texting them. They miss the emotional certainty they had with you, the knowing that you'd always be there, always reply, always forgive, always keep the thread going. And when that certainty is suddenly gone, not in a dramatic storm out the door kind of way, but in a calm, grounded, unbothered kind of way, it shakes them. That's when you get the message that says, hey, how have you been? Or, I was thinking about you the other day. It's not just that they missed talking to you. It's that they're not used to the silence. They're not used to not knowing what you're thinking. And the mystery you've created isn't artificial, it's real. It comes from the fact that you've stopped making them your focus. And here's the irony. We spend so much time trying to get someone's attention by being more available, more kind, more forgiving, more present, when what often triggers real curiosity is when we stop filling in the silence, when we stop chasing closure, when we stop trying to understand why they're not acting the way we hoped they would. Instead, we shift. We shift into ourselves, into our boundaries, into our joy, into what makes us magnetic without even trying. And the person who's been distant, they feel it. They don't always understand it at first, but they feel the energy shift. And in that shift, you've done something they didn't expect. You've taken your power back, not in a loud, angry way, but in the quietest, strongest way possible, by simply choosing you. Because when someone is used to you playing a certain role in their life, even passively, they don't realize how much they've come to depend on it until you're no longer playing it, until the rhythm changes, until the conversation no longer starts with you, until your light is no longer focused on them, but radiating in your own direction. That's when they start wondering. That's when they start checking. That's when they start texting. And that's when you get to decide from a place of real clarity, not attachment, whether you want to answer, let, silence, say what words never could. You know, one of the hardest things to do when someone pulls away is nothing. That silence they give you feels deafening. It's uncomfortable, almost unnatural, to just sit there and not reach out. You want clarity. You want reassurance. You want to fix whatever went wrong. But what if I told you that not reacting is exactly what shifts the power dynamic? Not in a game-playing way, but in a way that finally brings balance back to the connection. There's something incredibly powerful about mirroring someone's energy. Not out of spite or punishment, but out of self-respect. When someone distances themselves from you, especially someone you care about, your natural instinct might be to lean in, to close the gap. You think if you show how much you care, they'll realize what they're losing. But in reality, chasing someone who's pulling away only reinforces the idea that you value them more than they value you. And when that imbalance is obvious, the other person never feels the need to step up. What mirroring does is it gives them a chance to feel what you've been feeling. If he's going cold and you go colder, suddenly there's a void, a space that he's used to being filled with your attention, your affection, your reassurance. When that disappears, it forces a confrontation with his own behavior. It's not punishment, it's reflection. It's like holding up a mirror to his actions. You're not begging him to return. You're simply showing him what it feels like to be on the receiving end of indifference. Now, here's where people get it wrong. They think mirroring is just about copying behavior. He waits 3 hours to text me back, so I'll wait 4. But that's not what I'm talking about. That's still reactive. That's still rooted in him. What I'm saying is observe his level of interest and then adjust your investment accordingly. If he shows minimal effort, meet him with minimal effort. If he's pulling away, give him the space he clearly wants. But do it from a place of self-awareness, not from insecurity. Don't pull back just to get a reaction. Pull back because you're not going to pour your energy into a one-sided connection. You see, when you mirror instead of chase, you send a very quiet, very powerful message. I'm not going to work harder than you to keep this connection alive. That statement alone commands respect. Because here's the truth. People value what they have to earn. And when someone realizes you're not available by default, that your attention is something they have to show up for, they begin to treat it with more care. That's the turning point. Because now, instead of being the one who's constantly thinking about when he'll text or if he still cares, he's the one noticing your absence. He's the one asking himself, wait, why haven't I heard from her? That pause in communication, when done with calm confidence, creates curiosity. And curiosity is the seed of pursuit. But it only works when you're not secretly hoping he chases you. It has to come from a genuine place of, if this connection fades because I stopped chasing it, then it was never real to begin with. That level of emotional maturity is magnetic. It's the difference between being someone he likes and someone he respects, someone he fears losing. Think about it. How often do we overextend ourselves emotionally only to be met with crumbs of attention in return? How long have you been overcompensating for someone else's emotional laziness? Mirroring corrects that imbalance. It doesn't demand, it doesn't explain, it doesn't convince, it just is. And it's incredibly effective because it gives the other person a chance to feel what life is like without your emotional labor. Some will rise to meet you, others will drift further, but both outcomes are a win because you'll either attract the effort you deserve or gain the clarity to walk away. When you stop chasing, something amazing happens. You regain control of your emotions. You stop waiting by the phone. You stop overanalyzing texts. You stop putting your self-worth in someone else's hands. You begin to show up differently, not just for them, but for yourself. That energy shift is what makes them reach out. Not because you manipulated them, but because you became scarce, and in a world full of noise, your silence became loud. And when he does text you again, because he will, you'll know it wasn't because you begged or proved your worth or tried harder. It was because you finally gave him a reason to wonder what it feels like to lose you. Most people use silence like it's some kind of punishment. Like, if I stop replying, he'll finally realize what he's missing. Or, if I wait long enough, maybe he'll miss me and come crawling back. But that kind of silence is rooted in hope. Hope that they'll change, hope that they'll come to their senses, hope that your absence will be louder than your presence ever was. And that's where it goes wrong. Because silence, when it's used like a tool to provoke a reaction, stops being silence. It becomes noise, just a different kind. It's noise you carry inside of you. The anxious checking of your phone, the mental bargaining, the countdowns in your head like it's been 3 days. You should have reached out by now. But the kind of silence that actually pulls someone back in, real silence, comes from a very different place. It's not about making him wonder where you went. It's about you realizing that you've already arrived somewhere better. It's not cold. It's not bitter. It's not some petty power play. It's peace. It's clarity. It's you finally understanding that your worth isn't tied to someone else's recognition of it. When silence isn't a strategy, but a statement, everything shifts. Suddenly, you're not using it to get attention. You're using it to protect your energy. And believe it or not, that energy speaks louder than any words ever could. Because when you pull back and actually mean it, not because you're playing a game, but because you're no longer available for breadcrumbs, you send a powerful signal. One that says, I'm not angry, I'm just not staying here. That's the kind of silence that makes someone sit up and pay attention. Not because you've manipulated them into missing you, but because the silence is authentic. It's backed by your value. You're not checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if he's noticed. You're out in the world, living, reconnecting with yourself, reinvesting in the parts of your life that actually give back. And it's in that energy, free from need, free from desperation, that someone starts to feel the real impact of your absence. He starts remembering how it felt to have access to your warmth, your presence, your effort. And now it's gone. Not because you've slammed a door, but because you simply walked through a better one. And when that happens, his mind does what every human mind does in the face of uncertainty. It starts filling in the blanks. Why hasn't she reached out? Did she meet someone? Was I never that important? And those questions create more tension than any text you could have sent. Because this time, the silence wasn't designed to punish, it was designed to heal. And when you heal, you rise. Quietly, powerfully. But here's the truth most people miss. Silence only works when you're not faking it. If your silence is laced with anxiety, overanalysis, or resentment, it doesn't hold any weight. People can feel that. They can sense when your stillness is really just suppressed chaos. But when your silence is rooted in self-respect, that's magnetic. That's when someone doesn't just hear your silence, they feel it. And it stirs something in them. Maybe guilt, maybe regret, maybe longing, but it moves them. That's what makes the phone buzz. That's what triggers the late night, I've been thinking about you message. It's not your absence that creates the reaction. It's the shift in your presence elsewhere. You've stopped pouring your energy into them, and now it's showing up in your glow, your boundaries, your joy. And that shift is loud. That's what people notice. That's what makes someone pick up their phone and wonder if it's already too late. The irony is, when you're truly silent, in the right way, you don't need the call or the text anymore. You've already found what you were looking for in yourself. So when it does come, and it often does, you're no longer looking for validation. You're looking at it with fresh eyes, asking, do I still want this? Not from a place of ego, but from clarity. So don't weaponize silence. Don't wait for it to work like some spell. Let it come from a grounded place. A place where your peace speaks so loudly it becomes impossible to ignore. Because when your silence is real, when it's rooted in growth, in love for yourself, in the decision to no longer shrink to fit into someone else's indecision, that's when they feel it. That's when they notice. And that's when they finally reach out. ChatGPT said, you want to know what really makes someone reach out again? It's not the silence. It's not the ignoring. It's not disappearing from their life hoping they'll notice you're gone. It's the evolution. It's when you stop being who you were with them and start becoming who you were always meant to be without them. That shift changes everything, because whether they say it or not, people can feel when you've upgraded. They sense it in your energy, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you no longer orbit around them. And that shift becomes magnetic. Let's be honest. When we're heartbroken, we obsess. We think if we can just post the right picture, say the right thing, or act like we're unbothered, they'll come running back. But here's the truth. Pretending you've moved on is not the same as actually moving on. And they can tell the difference. The version of you that's trying to trigger them into calling still has one foot stuck in the past. But the version of you that says, I'm done performing for your attention, now that person becomes unforgettable. See, what people don't understand is that attraction isn't just built on looks or on shared history or even chemistry. It's built on value, not just what you give to them, but how much you value yourself. When someone sees you investing in your own life, your peace, your purpose, your growth, they feel the gap widening. Suddenly, the person they thought would always be there has evolved into someone they're no longer sure they can reach. And that is terrifying for them because you become unfamiliar. You're not the same person who answered their texts immediately. You're not the person who tolerated their mixed signals. You're not the version of you who kept trying to explain your worth to someone who refused to see it. You're someone new, and they haven't been introduced to this version of you yet. That's the power of the upgrade. It's not about revenge. It's not about getting back at someone. It's not even about getting them back. It's about becoming the kind of person who would never settle for the version of that relationship you had before. It's about creating a life that feels so good, so full, so deeply aligned with your values that anyone who wants to come back is going to have to rise to your level to even qualify for a response. Most people wait. They wait for closure. They wait for the text. They wait for some sign that the other person still cares. But the most powerful shift happens when you stop waiting and you decide. You decide to pour that energy back into yourself, into your body, your mind, your career, your creativity, your circle, into things that feed your soul instead of deplete it. That decision changes your posture. It changes your tone. It changes the conversations you entertain. And guess what? That's when they feel it. They may not even understand why, but something in them starts to stir. They feel you slipping out of reach, not because you're trying to prove a point, but because you genuinely are evolving. That absence of desperation, that calm certainty, that peace you carry without needing their validation, that's the energy that haunts them. Because the truth is, people remember impact. And the old version of you, the one who tried too hard, who waited too long, who made them the center of everything, that version may have been easy to forget. But this version, the one who knows their worth, the one who glows differently because they're no longer trying to win someone over, that version becomes unforgettable. So if you're sitting there wondering, will he call? Will he text? Will he ever realize what he lost? You're asking the wrong question. The real question is, will you become so focused on your growth, so lit up by your own life, that it doesn't matter whether he does or not? Because once you do that, the dynamic changes. You go from being someone who hopes he remembers you to being someone he can't stop thinking about. He'll call, he'll text, not because you played a game, but because you stopped playing entirely, because you became the kind of person who is no longer accessible to the version of him that left. And when he does reach out, it won't be a victory. It'll just be confirmation of what you already knew. You never needed to chase love. You just needed to become someone who attracts the right kind of it. And that's when everything starts to change.